In this video, we're going to look at a little bit more depth into using the breakouts. So breakouts are much easier to do in this software, I think, than some other meeting software that I've used. And I think it does some really nice things as far as preparing students and allowing you to prepare ahead of time to get students into the right ones. So I only have 3 people to use for this demonstration, but hopefully this will be enough to get you where you need to be. So the first thing we want to do is get into the right mode. So right now we're in the attendee view, which just tells us who's here. But we want to move into the breakout room view. So I'm going to click on the breakouts, and you'll notice that as I scroll down, I've got several. I'm going to close these, or I'm sorry, I'm going to remove them because there's nobody in them. There's no content. I've prepared nothing, so I'm not losing anything. So I want to close those. And now I have just the main meeting, which is this one right here, and then I have one breakout. So actually, let's close that one too, and we'll just create brand new ones. So now let's actually create. So let's create that one. So there's nobody in it, and then let's create another one. So we've got 2 breakouts. So one of the things that you'll want to do, if you want to plan this ahead of time, is to set it up so that you can put students in it. So what this means is, it's the first part of that process is assigning students to a breakout. So assigning them means that you can either use this distribution, which allows you to evenly distribute people into that from the main room into the other breakouts. That's going to be particularly nice if you have a very large group and you don't want to have to drag them all in. Fortunately, typically our classes are going to be 25, 26 or less, so that's not quite as bad, and especially if you want to do them based on, the way the students are grouped or their abilities. You may actually want to do it manually because you're going to want to put them in the right groups together. So let's just say that we've got students. We're going to drag this one in. So literally all I did, hopefully you see that again, is I put my mouse over top that student, left clicked, and dragged that student into the breakout. Which I did not quite do that properly. There we go. And then I'm going to drag the other student in. But I'm going to put them in breakout too. So you'll see that they've been placed in these breakouts, but they have not been moved because this button here that says start has not been clicked. So all I've done is assign these students. I've not done anything else. So let's imagine that you had a large group and you wanted to assign them all. This will make it much easier to do the assigning ahead of time and have it all ready, just like we talked about. And again, we've got our main meeting and we've got our different breakouts. So once you assign a student to a breakout, then that way when you get to the point where you want to put them in and actually start it, you'll have them all ready. Let's say I want to go and monitor those. I can do that later. So let's actually take a look at that now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and start the breakouts. Click on the start. And it says you are now in a breakout session, and then there's the end breakouts and then the broadcast message. As a host, because I am one, broadcasting will allow me to send a message to all of the breakouts at one time. So that's going to be positive, and having to not jump into each one individually, that would be a bit of a pain. So I'm going to actually close this, and we'll come back to that little dialog box here in just a moment. But let's say I did want to move through the breakouts. That's not a problem. If I had several, maybe I can extend this window so I can see a little bit more information. But I can place myself into these breakouts. So I could say, let's see what breakout 1 is doing. And I jump in. You'll notice my whole screen changes. There's a different chat for breakout 1. Let's say I want to check out breakout 2. I want to drag myself into breakout 2. And again, I've got a chat for breakout 2 and the ability to have content in each one. So if they were sharing content, or maybe you changed the roles of those students, maybe you make someone a moderator and they've got different rights, you could certainly do that as well. So that way information or content could be shared. So a scenario might be, okay, we're going to break you into groups and you're going to work on some content together. So let's say breakout 2 is going to work on content. So we're going to create a whiteboard for that. So now breakout 2 has a whiteboard. This student is just a student, so they can't really do a whole lot. So I'm going to make this student, if I click on them, I'm going to change their role. and that will allow me to do that. So I need to go back to the attendees role, and I need to click on that student, and I'm going to make them a host. So just for briefly, make them a host, and that way they can manage some of their own content. So let's go back to the breakouts again. And so now that student has a lot more rights than they did before, but now they'll be able to write on the whiteboard and the students can all work together. So the next thing I want to do is, again, I've dragged myself through these different ones. I can see what's going on in each of the breakouts. I'm going to move myself back to the main meeting. But just like I said before, I may want to do a broadcast. So you see this little button up here, it tells me, and this icon tells me that there's a breakout session going on right now. So I'm going to click on that breakout, and I'm going to broadcast a message, which will basically say, let's say 5-minute warning. That's going to send a message to everybody, and it basically pops up in the upper right hand corner of their view. Click OK and close that again, and now I want to end them. So what happens when I end them? I click End Breakout, and what does that do? Well, it doesn't remove people from the breakout session or the ones that they've been designated, but it does bring them back to the main meeting. So again, the advantage being you can still leave them assigned. So if you're going to do several activities together over several different periods of time, but you want to take them in and bring them out of that main meeting and back to the breakouts, this is what will allow you to do that. It would even allow you to shuffle people around by moving them in and out of these different breakouts. So that's a different view of breakouts, a little bit more depth than we did before. And hopefully that makes a little bit more sense than it did from the first time around. But again, this is one you can practice, which is going to be easiest to practice with a partner, or we can certainly practice that if others need to have practice. So just send me an email and we can certainly take a look at that together. So if you have any questions, let me know.